Welcome, everyone, to episode number 25 of the Creator Series here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today's guest is a Chicago R&B artist. He's one of my good friends. I've actually been talking to him throughout the year, and we've been going back and forth on music and sending ideas back and forth. His name is Jeremy Foster. Today we talked about all of his influences in music. One of his biggest influences is Usher. He's been compared to Usher here and there. You'll hear it if you hear his music. But honestly, in my opinion, I think Jeremy has a very unique sound to offer to music and to R&B in particular. And, you know, his last EP was incredible. He's dropped a bunch of singles. He let me know that he's working on a ton of music. He has a single coming out very soon, and he's putting together another EP to give the fans probably in 2021. But obviously I had, Jeremy in mind to be on the show, and I reached out to him this week and we made it happen. So I'm not going to give away too much about the episode. So let's just get right into it. All right, welcome everyone to episode number 25 of the Proven Knowledge Podcast. This is the Creator Series. Today I have a friend of mine out of Chicago. He's an incredible R&B artist, arguably one of the best up-and-coming artists in my opinion. His name is Jeremy Foster. How are you, man?
Yo, what's up, man? Thank you for having me, man.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
doing well.
Yes, sir.
Doing well.
And I'm glad we could make this happen this week, obviously. Like I said, I had this plan, before. I just didn't know when it was going to happen, but, better now than never. So it's great to hear from you. So to start off, for those who might not be familiar with you, your music, kind of just give a little background about who you are, how you got into music, and a little bit of, the basics.
Yeah, okay, cool. So, yeah, you already mentioned it. I'm from Chicago. Yeah, man, I started making music at around 13. I grew up in a R&B household. My mom was always playing, 90s R&B, early 2000s. So I think, now when I look back, I think just growing up with hearing so much R&B, I guess it just kind of came natural, you know what I mean? And obviously I would sing those songs and just different songs I was hearing and try to mimic the artists that I was listening to. And eventually, around 13, I started just writing songs. I can't even remember the exact moment that, forced me to start writing. It just kind of came natural. And I just caught myself, writing. I got a pen and pad. And, before we had the smartphones and, writing songs down. And then that curiosity just built from there. And after that, it just kind of went from there, and obviously you start creating music, doing it for fun, and then at some point you kind of get to a point where you start deciding you want to do this as a career, and start taking it more serious. So obviously I started doing more research and just started getting better at my songwriting and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah.
For the most part?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And that's awesome too, because I know I feel like if you, I think I've said this on past episodes, if you have, the exposure at an early age, it helps you out a lot, moving forward. But the difference is, like you just said, is just you kind of learn to take it more seriously as you get older. Because I think, that's a maturity thing to me, is when you're young, you might not even think about that as a career to begin with. It might just be something fun that you're doing. But then once you kind of hone your skills a little bit and figure out you can do it, that's kind of where you move to. So
Yep.
That's definitely something that's awesome. So I know 2020 has been kind of a crazy year for a lot of people, obviously, for many reasons. For you personally, whatever you want to share, how has this year been for you? How have you got through any hard times you've kind of been facing? What has 2020 looked like for Jeremy Foster?
Gotcha. Yeah, man. So like you said, obviously 2020 has been probably the craziest year in history or whatever, For me, I think in the beginning, when it first started out, it kind of, hit me hard a little bit because it just was new, crazy. It was just we didn't understand what it was. We're still trying to understand it, but, this whole pandemic we're in and all that. Now I'm kind of finding a peace in it though, even though it looks like, at least where I'm at, it's like we're going back to, I don't know which stage 2 or 1, I don't even know, but it looks like, the virus is starting to peak back up a little bit, so we're starting to kind of go back in reverse. Mm-hmm. But even through that though, I'm just finding peace, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I think you gotta just mental health is everything. You know, you just gotta. It's easy to, especially with all this going on, to kind of fall into a slump or like a depression because you in the house all the time. Like, you know, life isn't normal. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just weird. But I think for me, just trying to like just be around family and around. Obviously, I can't be around too many people, but I'm probably hanging out with my girl or like just the few people I can be around, and just working on music, man, creating that keeps my mind off what's going on now. So I think you just got to find those creative outlets to kind of escape from all the madness. So as of right now, I'm staying positive and just trying to distract myself with creativity and just, trying to like just relax.
I feel like that was always important too. Like even before all this, it was like you should always have something like a creative outlet to kind of take your mind off things or like the things we have to deal with every day. But like obviously, there's just been so much craziness that no one anticipated.
Right.
And where I'm from in Ohio, it's kind of similar to where what's happening with you apparently is like they're starting to go back on a lot of the things we were doing in April and May, which is like mask mandates obviously in every place, and they're talking about maybe closing certain schools down again and things like that. I just went past a college campus not too far from me today, and it looked like there was no one there on a Tuesday morning. Like when I was in college, that place was packed. You know what I mean? So obviously, I think a lot of students are either doing it online or not doing it at all. So it's just kind of crazy to see how things have been moving this year and how that kind of is going to affect things moving forward and just the world in general. But I think like exactly what you said is just having family, having things that can take your mind off things, and things that are gonna push positive things and not negative energy. So
Definitely.
that's
Yeah.
always an important thing. So back to the music, as far as how you begin a song, Jeremy, as far as the writing process, how does that start for you usually? Is it different every time? Are you writing pen and paper? Are you hearing the beat, freestyling maybe, like, or is it completely different for every song?
Got you. So there's definitely been an evolution in my creative process, but currently now I would say it's kind of the same with every song. I don't write anything down anymore, but it's not like I go in the studio and just freestyle the whole song. I just like put the beat on, and I kind of start with melodies. That's how I write everything. I always go with the melodies first, and I might just hum something, and then like it just kind of it's just like a kind of natural process for me now. But yeah, I just put the beat on, and like I might play it back a couple times, and then just kind of like imagine in my head like, okay, what do I want to say here and here, and sometimes I break it up. So I might do half the verse and then stop and then play it back some more, and then come up with the rest of the verse in my head, and then lay the rest of the verse down like that. So it's kind of like part by part, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of how I do it. It's just all in my head, and then I half freestyle, half organize it in my head. So yeah.
Do you think that has to do with you being more comfortable with creating over the years? Is that just kind of something you grew into, you think?
You know what? It was so crazy because what made me like get into creating like this was I think it was an interview that I saw, and I don't know if it was I think it was Lil Wayne. I think because I know he always talks about he doesn't write,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know to what extent, but if I recall correctly, I remember him saying like he doesn't write anything down. Like he just goes in the booth and like just lays it down, and I think it was cause like to save on time or something like that. And I don't know. I guess he just wanted to like challenge himself to like just go with whatever's on your mind in that first moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing that, and I was just like, huh, like I know he's a rapper, but I wonder how that would be doing it with music. Like, at first I was just writing everything down, like whether it's on my phone or in a notebook. But then after I saw that interview, I was like, man, let me try that. And then I just kept doing it, and then eventually I did get comfortable with it, and it just became my normal way to record. And I kind of like that a little bit more because it's kind of like it's more in the moment. So you just whatever you feeling, you just say it, and you don't have to have it all like mapped out. But you don't have to write anything down. You just go in and just lay it down. So yep.
It's like the raw energy of the music, kind of. So what it is
Yep.
just putting out the emotions that are right there in front of you, pretty much.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, you don't have to worry about, like, reading off your phone or anything. You just, because if you already know what you got it up here, you just say it. So you're not, like, reading off a notebook or reading off a phone. You're like you said, it's that raw energy. So you're more probably emotionally connected to what you're saying because it's like, it's just you and the mic, you know? So,
Interesting
yeah.
stuff. Is there any type of like vocal warm ups you're doing before you're recording, or
Oh yes, I do. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like there are days I slack off and just hop in the booth and start recording, which isn't recommended always. But yes, there is like a 5 to 10 minute vocal warm up regimen that I do, and like just kind of get my vocal cords relaxed and comfortable, and yeah, so I do that. Yeah.
so here's a question that I was trying to ask last week with an artist I interviewed, but she said she'd never done live shows. I know that you've done live shows before. So how is it different from prepping to record a song in the studio as opposed to preparing for a live performance? What are the differences in the two?
So to me, prepping for live shows can be definitely, in my opinion, more nerve wracking. You know what I mean? Because I'm a perfectionist. In the studio, to me, it's comfortable, man. Because like I self engineer like the majority of my stuff. Obviously, I track all my stuff here and I take it to my engineer and he mixes everything. But I mean, it's just me in the studio, So I'm very comfortable when I'm recording. Like the process is very comfortable. I can mess up a million times, and it's just me. I can do the takes however many times I want to. But then when you're not performing, when you are preparing for a show, it's a whole different mindset because like now you have to think about okay, how is this going to sound and look to your audience, and so now it's just a lot more factors. And then if you're working with a band, and if you got background singers, you got to coordinate with them and you got to rehearse. And so, depending on how many other people you got involved in your show, there's a lot more factors you got to think about. So I think with shows, it's just a lot more pressure, but it's good pressure though, and you just got to kind of wear more hats, I think, when I'm prepping for a live show. So, yeah.
I think a lot of artists like forget about that side of it because I know I've even talked to artists that are like, oh, I'll just go do my first show and I don't have to do anything. I can just get up there and do my thing. But like, even like the fitness aspect of it, I feel like you have to be physically prepared for a certain type of show. Like, you have lights on you, you have a crowd. Like, it's totally different from just being in, like you said, a comfortable space like a studio where you can just move at your own pace pretty much and not have to worry about a bunch of people, seeing you and whatnot. So I don't know. It's interesting to me because I'm not an artist. I don't obviously know what any of that's like, but I think it's important for people to know kind of the differences between the two and that, it's a lot more work for probably a live show than being in a studio anyway. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think like, if you're, like I said, it depends on the type of show you're going to put on, but I think, if you're trying to, put on a really, really dope show, and especially like if you're a singer too, I mean, in my opinion, like especially if you care about live vocals, people actually hearing your voice versus just hearing the track, like that makes a lot of difference because, you got to make sure and that's another thing I don't think people really think about, but as singers, you got to like make sure like that week, if obviously I'm not doing shows now because pandemic, but pre-COVID, like if I had a show like this week, I'm like if I got a show Friday, I'm watching what I'm eating like this whole week because dairy affects your voice. Like I'm making sure I'm not yelling a lot because sometimes you lose your voice close to the show and then now you sound off key and like you know what I mean. So yeah, like it's for singers, like it's a whole science to it. And any singer that's in tune with that, they'll tell you the same thing. Like you gotta watch what you eat that week. How you're using your voice. All that stuff matters because then when you get to the show, what you did that week is you'll be able to tell based on how you perform that night. So
It's things you would never really think about from like an outsider's perspective, but if you're an artist, you would have to know how to do all that stuff. So I appreciate you sharing that.
No problem.
So, so we talked about, you've been wanting to do music or you have been doing music for a while. Who, when you were growing up, was your biggest influences, you'd say, as far as like made you say, I want to be, a singer?
Man, so I'm always go with Usher. Like every time I get a question, like Usher, man, that's my number one influence. Like, and a lot of people say I sound like Usher. It was never my intention to try to mimic his sound or nothing like that. But it probably just came natural because that was my first influence. Like that was the person that made me want to do music. So yeah, man. I mean, Usher all around. I think he is like. I think in this generation he is actually like underrated now. I feel like he's. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I feel like he's like people obviously acknowledge the legend of him, but now I think it's like he's not given that due respect. I think people kind of sleeping now a little bit. But I think he's still just as dope as he was like when he first started. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's to me the one of the best all around male R&B performers. Like you don't see a lot of, or just performers in general. You don't see a lot of performers that know how to sing and dance at the same time and still stay on key, still hit the notes and everything, and it's just flawless. Like not a lot of singers can do it that well. So yeah, man, I just think he just like that's my top for sure, top pick. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely grew up in that era too when Usher was like one of the biggest artists in the world. I don't know if it's just like a change in like the sound, like the time period and what people are into maybe had to do with it. I don't know, but like you definitely look back at his influence and it's obviously just in music in general, it's just freaking massive. So like
Yeah.
it's hard to deny like how great he really is. Um,
Yeah.
do you have anyone? It could be Usher. Usher could be the answer as well. But do you have anyone that you would ever want to do a song with?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, obviously Usher's gonna be on top of that list. Chris Brown,
Mm.
Drake, uh, and well, I'll say those three for sure. For now, I mean, there's other artists, but those three are like the first that come to mind. For sure.
I mean, that's not a bad big three right there. So
Right?
it's
Yeah.
like a Mount Rushmore almost right there. Some of the greatest
Seriously.
artists.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So who so far that you've worked with? It could be a producer. It could be with an artist. Who have you worked with so far in your career that you say has been one of your favorite people to collaborate with on music?
So I would say, good question. I would say this producer named K Tones. He's also an artist too, so yeah, you guys should definitely check him out. He's fire. Yeah, man, I like his production. His production is dope, and I think he's good at recreating production. Like if I, like for example, if I tell him, hey, I'm going for like sound, like he'll recreate something similar to that, but won't like copy that,
Mm-hmm.
copy that style with that swag, and it'll just come out dope. So he's good at creating, just recreating something and still keeping it original,
Mm-hmm.
still keeping it. So yeah, I like his production a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see, there's definitely some other people. Of course, gotta shout you out. Shout out to Elliot,
Appreciate it,
man.
man.
Send me some fire. Send me some fire. We got some stuff we're working on, so definitely got to put you on that list. Yeah, there's a few other people, but I'll say you and K
Mm-hmm.
Tones. Yeah.
Am I right in saying that he produced that whole EP you put out in 2019? Is he the one that did that one?
You know what? He's not.
Oh, he's
But
not.
yeah. So I guess I shout him out too. His name is K Dot.
Mm.
Yeah, he produced that whole EP,
Okay.
or like majority of those songs. So yeah, him as well. Like we've been working together for a few years, and like, yeah, we just got like a nice flow. You know what I mean? A nice artist producer flow. Obviously, we've been working together for years, so yeah, definitely got to put him in that list as
Yeah,
well.
cause I remember like I went through your whole EP like from top to bottom, and I was like, man, this all flows very well. And like
Yeah,
that "Love You Anyway" beat, I was like, that shit just draws you in right from that guitar. When I heard that, I'm like, this is a fucking banger. Like this is a
yep.
banger right from the beginning. And then you come in, I'm like, come on, like that's a fucking smash hit, dude. I swear to God. Like I'm not saying that because you're here. That's a smash hit. Like when my artist J Trey, right? And we've been, I think I've told you about him and everything. I told him about you, and I was like, you got to look up Jay Foster. And I think he heard that song first, and he's like, dude, what the fuck is this? This is amazing. I said, dude, I'm telling you, man, like, fucking, that song, that's still probably my favorite song of yours, but I love the production. I love that whole EP, honestly. So that's dope. But I'll have to look up the other guy. Who's the other guy again?
Yeah, K-Tones. K-T-O-E-Z.
Okay, I'll have to look him up. Is he out of Chicago then?
He is. Yeah, he is.
I'll have to look up his stuff too because I want to hear what he's worked on and everything. So I know we were talking about the studio earlier and like how you create music and everything. I don't know how much you create out of the studio and how much you create from just your house. Does it really matter to you, or can you kind of just do work anywhere you're at as long as you're feeling the good energy and everything?
Yeah, so I would say I'm probably gonna be my most productive in my home setup just because I'm just so used to working there. I have worked in studios as well, in and out of studios. I think I like just the intimacy though of like just being at home and just having total control of the entire session. So I think I'm probably gonna be better in my home setup, but it, for the most part, doesn't matter though. I can go to the studio and like kind of pretty much replicate the same thing I'm doing here. It's just a little bit more of a comfortability in my home setup. So
do you go to just studios in the city? Do you have like specific spots or anything?
Yeah, so I go to shout out to Law Beats, he's my engineer. He's super dope. So I go to him. He has like a setup. It's in Chicago. It's actually like 10 minutes from me, which is dope. And yeah, so I actually have a session with him next Wednesday. So I'll be going there next Wednesday to work on like just mixing one of the records I tracked here. And yeah, so that's where I go to like for all my mixing and stuff like that. So
that's probably super helpful too, to just be able to like get in your car and go right down the road and keep working. You know what I mean? You don't have to drive like way far away to get to a studio. Because like where I'm at, I know the closest studio to me is like 45 minutes away. So it's not like ideal for me to constantly go back and forth to there.
Right.
Or I'd have to drive up to Cleveland, which is like an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the traffic. So it's not.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, like not the most convenient. Yeah.
It's almost
for sure.
It's almost ideal to just be in the house doing what you got to do, or like go around town. But that's definitely great that you have something like that. So as far as R&B, let's just say the R&B genre. I know R&B is kind of having like a renaissance, technically, in the last like 5-6 years now, with a lot of new artists. Where do you think that's heading, the genre itself, and where do you think you fit into that? And what do you think you can bring to the genre and kind of push it in where it's going? If you get what I'm saying.
No, I get you.
Yeah.
I get you. Yeah, man, that's a good question. Well, good few questions there. Well, so I think that, yeah, I agree with you. I think R&B is making a turn, whatever you want to call it, renaissance, comeback thing. It's still, it's still a few levels, in my opinion, that it's got to go before it's like at the forefront, like it was in the early 2000s and 90s. But I do believe that that's where it's heading. It's heading, like, I feel like, like they say, history repeats itself. So I feel like, it's going to eventually, the curve is going to go back to R&B at some point, and it's going to be just as big as how rap is right now. So yeah, I think that's where it's heading. I think it's heading in a good direction. It's definitely a lot of sub-genres in R&B that's people that we're all still trying to figure out, like, how to classify it. Like, you got Trap Soul with Bryson Tiller, and, like, then you got, just,
I've heard of like Trap and B is what they call one. It's like, I think they put Black in there, and they put like Don Toliver in there, and like a few other people that like sing and they rap at the same time.
Yeah. So I don't even know. Like, that's like, I honestly would have, if you asked me that like maybe 10-15 years ago, like, would R&B be that? I would have been like, no, like, what? Like, so it's crazy how R&B is like morphed into this like sub genres thing, and it's like, so. But I think it's cool because it brings, at the end of the day, I think it's like bringing everybody back to R&B. So yeah, it's heading in a good direction. As far as where I fit in, in R&B, I would say, man, I think that, and I hope that I'm kind of carving my own sound. But a lot of people tell me I have that, reflections of the early R&B. So I guess I'm bringing a lot of that essence of what made R&B great to modern R&B. So I guess that's what I'm trying to do. Trying to kind of bring a little bit of the old and mix it with the new, and just kind of create some hybrid sound. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm kind of like a hybrid. I think I'm kind of staying true to a lot of the essence of R&B, like the elements that made it great, but I'm like trying to kind of keep up with the times too and just mesh them together, And then what was the last question you asked, or was that everything?
I think that might have been the whole thing right there. Unless I forgot something, I don't know. But it's weird because like if I go back like 7-8 years ago, besides what I was hearing on the radio and stuff, I didn't have like any R&B artists that I was like, man, I listen to these people all the time, or I listen to these people every day. And then like probably around 2015 or 16, I started like finding a lot more artists that I enjoy. Like Snow Allegra was one of them. Aaron Ray is one of my favorite artists now. He's dope. Giveon, he's dope. Like a ton of people, and it just seems like every year there's new people that are coming out. K. Roosevelt, another guy, I love his music. I don't know, it's just kind of weird how it has kind of come back around to being like one of the more popular genres, if you will, whatever. But yeah, I totally agree with you with like the mixing of the genres, and like there's a lot of trap influence with things, and even Drake. Drake is a great example of that too, because you look at like 2008 Drake, and a lot of it was just the singing and stuff, the Marvin's Room type songs, and then like he did like the Future tape, and from the Future tape on, he's kind of went back and forth between like some songs he'll sing, some songs he'll just straight rap the whole time. You know what I mean? You can't really pin down what he does, because he just does his own thing. You know what I mean? Like, so.
Yeah. I feel like that's what's been happening too. Like, I think Drake's a great example of that. Like, R&B and rap are kind of fusing together. Like, so like I said, it creates this like hybrid and all these. Then it's like all these subgenres after that. So, and then I think that there's even like what they call it alternative R&B, whatever that is, But I think that there's even that new base that's been carved out. And in my opinion, I put like a Snow Allegra in there, or like a Giveon or something like that. I don't know. That's like that. You know what I mean? Like it's R&B, but it's like it has like these other elements that, in my opinion, are just like I don't even know how to explain it, but it's just like new modern-ish or whatever you want to call that. You know what I mean? So I don't know. So yeah, R&B is like you said, just all these different elements that are like forming from R&B. So it's not just R&B now where like I think in the early 2000s, R&B was like, that's R&B. Now R&B is like 5 different things, So, yeah.
And that's kind of, hip-hop kind of took the same route, although I think hip-hop's a little bit stuck with trap right now, unlike R&B that's kind of moving everywhere. But like hip-hop did the same thing kind of. It's just like, you used to think of like boom bap and like Tupac and Biggie and all that, and now you're in like, there's so many different rappers coming out every single year, and there's so many different styles now. So I don't know. It's just I think things are always going to keep evolving and changing, and it'll just be interesting to see where it goes. But it's definitely something to watch. So I don't know if you have a manager or anyone kind of helping you out your career-wise. Can you talk about if you have anyone like that, or are you kind of just doing that all yourself at this point?
Gotcha. So to answer your question, I'm currently I don't have a manager at the moment. There are a few people that I am working with, like on behind the scenes things, and we're like, collaborating on a few other things. So I wouldn't say necessarily management, but just kind of advising me, in different areas of the industry. So I would say I would put it in that category. But that's something that I am, working towards solidifying a manager though in the short term, while I am like using the connections I have to navigate through the industry.
So how has it been kind of just having your brand and your artist likeness in your own hands? Like how has that been, being able to move the pieces where you want them to?
Yeah, so I would say it has mixed emotions. So on one end, it's great because you got that freedom. You know, you can kind of do things on your terms, when you want to do them, how you want to do them. So I think that's great for creatives, you know, to have that freedom, you know. And then on one end, it's a lot of like, you know, obviously responsibility and can be, you know, pressure at times. And I think that's why, like, for me, I try to like leverage with the different pieces I have to kind of um, the fight for not having a manager. So kind of like using your different pieces to kind of like get what you need. You know what I mean? So yeah, I would say like it's mixed emotions for sure. Yeah.
It's definitely something that I think, like, again, with not a lot of artists that have the knowledge about like how their career needs to work or like how they can even make it happen. I think a lot of people just believe that they have to attach themselves to a manager or someone like that and it'll all work for them, but it might not always be the right situation. You know what I mean? As far as like getting what you want out of your career, can that person actually help you do that? You know what I mean? And are they looking out for your best interest as well? Like, I feel like people don't really get the relationship built before they make that happen. So it's just like you call that person your manager, but what are they doing? You know, are they looking out for you or are they looking out for them? You know what I mean? Like, it's
For sure.
I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever have like a manager or anybody like that, but I feel like one of the like base criteria to even do that, in my opinion, would be I need to know you as a person before anything else. So, I need to know if we can even do business together, and that has nothing to do with, music or me as an artist or whatever to begin with. So, I don't know. To me, that's how I've always viewed the whole manager thing. But I am with you though, as far as like being independent. There's definitely highs and lows, because like especially with the money thing too. Like financially, sometimes it's like, man, I got to pay this month, but I also want to release this project as well, and I want to do this, and this. So like, and trying to navigate that on your own is not always easy. But I don't know. I feel like you learn more of the helpful skills doing it on your own at first, so you can apply that later on, and kind of move yourself where you need to move it whenever whatever opportunities come your way. So.
But, yep. No, I agree. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, from creating a relationship with somebody who's going to manage you, I think that's so important. To first see if you guys are going to click, if you're going to mesh before you like go into a management partnership with somebody, because that's going to play into like your career. Overall, like you guys got the same morals, same values, like the same vision for your career. Like all that plays a big role. And then like you said, just with doing everything on your own is a lot of pressure and all that difficulties. But like you said, you learn a lot of kind of how to do certain things yourself, and how to like play multiple roles if needed. And it can be rewarding as well, because like I said, you still got that freedom and that flexibility. So hard work, but then there's a reward on the end of that too. Mm-hmm. So
the payoff is always like really nice at the end of it. No matter what you're trying to do, I think the payoff is always the best part. So.
Agreed.
So I only got a few more questions for you here, and then we'll wrap it up. What projects do you? I know you were talking about you got a lot of stuff coming up. You got a lot of music. So can you go into detail about like, is it an album? Is it what type of project is it? Like, just give us a little more detail.
Got you. So I am currently working on a new single at the moment that I'm thinking about putting out soon. So let's see. Well, hopefully next month. Hopefully sometime next month. So yeah. So I am working on a new single, and thinking about doing a visual with that as well, and a couple other things. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. I have been thinking about a project. So I'm thinking about possibly doing an EP, like a 5 or 6 track EP or something like that. Just something like to put out. So yeah. So but right now, single for sure, and then from there we'll go from there. So
I know I've been playing that "Turn Off the Lights" song. I've been playing that all summer. When you drop that, I had to add that to like my Spotify because I was like, man, that's a freaking like. I think I was in your live the day you played it. I think it was like your birthday or whatever. And
Oh yeah.
I was like, that's a club banger right there. Like that reminds me of like 2007. Like I would hear that on the radio. You know what I mean? That's awesome. So
Man,
that's a
thank you, man.
yeah, that's a great song, man. So where can fans find you on social media?
Yeah, man. So you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, at it's J Foster. So all together, no underscores or anything. It's J Foster, and yeah, I'm on Spotify. Whatever you listen to music on, I'm probably on it. So yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say because I know there's always. I think you did an interview with what R&B Radar, right? At
yeah.
one point.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like a slight little, like a
Yeah,
slight
it was
little
like
interview with them.
like
Yep.
a live or whatever. I remember you had to clarify that you're J. Foster on like streaming. You're not Jeremy Foster anymore. So
Right.
that's a
Yeah,
key.
that's correct. Yeah.
That's a key
Jay,
thing because
brought that up.
like
Jay
yeah,
Foster.
because I want like everyone to be able to like check out your stuff too. So
Right.
I'm glad we got that you know the right thing there. So Jeremy, if you could go back 10 years ago, maybe give yourself advice, maybe I don't know, it could be about music or life, whatever. What do you think you'd tell yourself?
Man, that's a good question. So 10 years ago, what would I tell myself? Let's see. Man. Okay, so I think I would just tell myself to. Okay, so I think 10 years ago, I was probably, I was a lot younger, obviously. So I was in my teens. So, obviously, you optimistic, before you get into the real world, you see how life is. So I would just say to, be positive, but to try to go for what's realistic early. You know what I mean? Like, I think, especially like in the music industry, when you're starting out, like, I think it's fun, so it's easy to get caught up into like the what ifs and like those are good. It's good to be optimistic, but then I think you gotta think about what's realistic and like how much is this gonna cost or whatever is like realistic or is this realistic to if you do work with this manager or whoever are you looking at the contracts, like do you have a lawyer, like you don't think about that stuff in the beginning, and then you can end up in situations that may not be in your best interest. You know what I mean? I definitely had to learn the hard way at a couple of things. You know what I mean? So I guess that's what I would tell myself 10 years ago. I would say to do your research and to try to be as realistic and logical as possible with everything you're doing. Like do your research, like go the extra mile to like make sure you know what paperwork you're signing, like everything before you like go to the next thing. So yeah.
So 10 years from now, where do you envision yourself being as far as music or in life, like we said?
So 10 years from now, so 10 years from now, I see myself doing a couple different things, and there's definitely a couple things I'm working on as well that I haven't mentioned, but I definitely see myself being really strong in the publishing writer world, and possibly even doing more with licensing. I think licensing is something that I have just a knack for. I did in the past get a placement on the TV show Nashville. Would Love You Anyway, actually. That was a song that got on there.
Nice.
So yeah, just seeing that's something I want to do more of. So I think 10 years from now, I'll be, hopefully doing more in that realm in terms of like placements, things like that. And yeah, man, just probably doing more writing for other artists.
I know the licensing thing, that's something I've been actually trying to reach out to people and kind of figure out who to reach out to because I know it's kind of it's a little bit different than like, working with artists and whatnot, but that's definitely something that I think a lot of artists need to know about and need to like look out for because, you never know, your songs could be used in like ads or even like little like 30-second ads or whatever, and you'll get monetization for that depending on, who you're working with and everything. So there's like a ton of opportunities in that. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you have any final words of wisdom today?
Ooh, words of wisdom. words of wisdom. I would just say words of wisdom. Like, I would say get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I guess to like go in more detail with that is like, especially when you're younger, like if you're like I don't know, 16, 17, 18, pursuing music, like realize that the younger you, okay, like starting at that age, you got use those years to fail, to learn to be okay with failing. Like, don't let fear or like anything hold you back from just trying things, because you never know like what'll work, and you never want to live with those like what ifs. So I would say just get comfortable being uncomfortable fast, because once you get comfortable with that, like you'll be unstoppable, you'll be undeniable, and you'll see like your progression will be much faster. You know what I mean? So don't be afraid to just hop out on a limb and reach out to this A&R. Like, don't be afraid to hop in someone's DMs. Like, it took me like probably longer to figure that out than like if I was 18 doing that. You never know. I don't know where I could have been now. So like that goes across the board with like any type of situation. So don't be afraid to like do stuff that you may not be comfortable doing, obviously within reason and within logic. But don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to just make music, put it out, and it may not be good the first time. Like, just once you get over that hump of like, I don't know, like, that fear, like, then you got it. So that's my words of wisdom. Get comfortable being uncomfortable as quick as you can.
Probably the best advice too is just like, if you have the fear, you're never going to be able to do anything. You got to lose that as much as you can, because it's going to actually get you places. The worst they can do is say no at the end of the day. So
that's it.
You'll live through the no's, and you'll get the yeses eventually. You just got to keep going.
That's it. Precisely.
Yes, man. Well, Jeremy, that's all I have for you today, man. I'm glad we could make this happen. Obviously, me and you are going to be in touch, constantly. I'm sending you music and back and forth and whatnot. But I wish you the best moving forward. I'm looking forward to hearing all the new music you got coming out. Looking forward to seeing where you go in your career, because I'm telling you, man, you're an amazing talent. Like, I don't even know what else to say about it. You're just freaking, your voice, the way you construct songs is fucking incredible, man. So hopefully we can do, an interview in person sometime. I don't know. But thank you again for being on the show today, man.
Yo, thank you, man. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad we was able to get this done. And yeah, man, I look forward to like all the music we're going to create. And yeah, hopefully one day we can like link in person and do this. So
yes,
yeah, man.
Thank you guys once again for listening. That was episode 25. We'll be back same time next week. As always, hit that support button on your podcast streaming platform. If you want to send any funds, it goes towards us getting better guests, new faces that you can't see, obviously. But once again, I appreciate you guys listening. It always means a lot to hear you guys are getting knowledge from the show, no pun intended. So have a great week, and we'll see you next time.